All right. Well, hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Sean Thompson. I am the coordinator for special admissions and campus outreach here in the Enrollment Center. It is great to see you all. I'm so glad for you all to join us to talk a little bit about the LPN to ADN nursing program here tonight. So without further ado, we'll go into some agenda items. All right, so before we get started, what we're going to do is we're going to actually share the LPN to ADN packet in the chat, as well as the FAQ page in the chat, so you all can follow along and look in the packet as we go and walk through the packet fully. So we're going to go ahead and go into introductions as the top of the order for the agenda. So as I said, I am Sean Thompson. I'm the coordinator for special admissions and campus outreach. And I will go ahead and pass it off to my colleague, Kaylin, to introduce herself. Kaylin?
Hi, everyone. So excited that you're joining us this evening. My name is Kaylin Asif. I'm the Director of Recruitment and Admissions at Davidson-Davie, and I help Sean oversee the nursing and programs with special criteria.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I'll pass it over to Holly to introduce herself.
Hey everyone, my name is Holly Myers and I am the Dean of Health Sciences here at Davidson-Davie. We're excited to have you guys join us tonight, and hopefully we'll give you guys a lot of answers to your questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So this session tonight will be live streamed through Facebook and recorded to watch on our YouTube page as well. We just want to mention, if you are not comfortable with joining due to the recording, we will send you the recording upon request. And we also are going to ask some folks, if you can, remain on mute, unless you have to raise your hand, whether we pass it along to the raise your hand feature. You can find that at the bottom of your screen, or you can just wait and you can ask your question in the chat. We do also have a Q&A session, as according to the agenda, that you can ask your questions at the end of the presentation, but we do have space for you to ask the questions in the chat whenever you want. So going through the agenda here a little bit, we have our LPN to ADN packet walkthrough. So we will be walking through all the admission checklist items, going over conditionally accepted steps, and we'll be answering any of your questions that you have. So please feel free to ask them whenever you can. So going right into it, this is our admissions checklist for the LPN to ADN program. So this is a brief overview of how we break everything down into phase requirements. So we have phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. We also want to remind everyone, if you can just mute your mics whenever you can, just to avoid the feedback, that would be great. Thank you. So going into phase 1 here, we have to break it down into the admission checklist items. So for the bullet point 1, you have to make sure that you have completed all of the requirements in the conditionally accepted students section of the packet. Next, we have our DDCC admission or readmissions process, where you would complete your residency determination as well as your new student orientation. Next, you would activate your DDCC Storm Track and email account. And then you have to submit evidence of high school completion, submit evidence of completion of all supportive academic non-NERC courses, and we will talk about that a little later, and have to demonstrate English and mathematics college readiness. So that would be phase 1. Phase 2 is obtaining a documentation that verifies your minimum of 3,328 hours of work experience as an LPN. Next is submitting your ATITs and achieving a minimum score of a 62. Obtaining documentation that verifies relevant life experience. And we can talk more about that as we get to that section. And then the last bullet point here is, once you've completed all of these things, the work documentation, the detailed T-scores, and life experience, you're going to submit all those items in one comprehensive document for us. And then the phase 3 will be the admissions review, where an admissions staff member will review all of your documents and do the official review. So moving into phase 1 here, So this is you would have to obviously complete the DDCC admission readmissions process. So including your residency determination and new student orientation. So for new students, applicants who have never attended DDCC will need to complete the admissions process through the North Carolina residency determination. So that is, we can talk more about that when you find that on the how to apply page when you are applying as a new student. For returning students, applicants who have never taken courses at DDCC in over a year must update their information by reapplying to the college, and that is in the RDS process. And for current students, applicants who are currently enrolled should check with their academic advisor or check with admissions office staff member to see if this is up to date. So we just want to make sure, as a reminder, if you are a current or former student, you would only need to reapply if there are 2 consecutive missed terms. So we'd also like to mention that in the general admissions letter that you receive, being admitted to the college does not mean you are admitted to the nursing program. So I just want to make that clear. So the next step here for bullet point 2 is activating your DDCC storm track and email. So we do have instructions and FAQ on our how to apply page when you get to that step. And we do have a student help desk that if you do have any questions, they are absolutely willing to help you there. Once you've applied, usually within 72 hours, you'll be accepted as a general application student. So you will get that packet emailed to you that will outline all the login information for your DDCC storm track and student ID. So once that is all set up, you can check your DDCC email from there. So the next step here is providing a high school diploma or equivalency. So there's multiple ways of submitting proof or evidence of this high school completion. So that'll include a diploma, final high school transcript, a high set, or GED. So applicants with international transcripts, we want to remind them that they must be evaluated and approved by a National Association of Credential Evaluation Services, or NACES. So please be sure to speak with an admissions staff member if you're curious about that. We want to remind our applicants that you are responsible for ensuring your transcripts have been received by Davidson-Davie admissions office by the specific date, so you can move forward with the LPN to ADN selection process. Oh, excuse me. Sorry, that's phase 2. So I just want to also mention that it is also your responsibility to make sure that these the high school transcript has been received. So you need to get in touch with us to verify that has been received upon you sending it. So we will be sure to check that. So we also have our 4th step here is to submit evidence of completion of all supportive non-NER or academic courses. So applicants must have all these completed with the LPN to ADN program. This is a must, so you need to do this and make sure these are all set. So with a grade of C or higher, that will be accepted for our listed courses for Bio 168 or Bio 165, Bio 169 or Bio 166, English 111, English 112, our Humanities 115, Psych 150, and Psych 241. So we do also allow to do course substitutes listed in the Uniform Articulation Agreement set by the University of North Carolina RN to BSN programs and North Carolina Community College Systems. So we do look into course substitutes, but the only approved ones from that list. So supportive courses, we also want to make sure that any official college transcripts we do take this. They do have to be official though. So applicants need to make sure if you're an international student, same thing. You need to get it approved by a NACES agency. And any official college transcripts need to be obviously official. So if you're handing them, they need to be sealed and hand delivered to us. You can also send them electronically, and transcripts must be sent directly by the applicant's prior institution to Davidson-Davie admissions office. So we do have an email listed at admissions@davidsondavie.edu. So you can also mail them if you want. We do have a listed address in the competitive packet. So continuing on to phase one, we have demonstrating English and mathematics college readiness. So as you can see, there are a few options, whether you can, submit transition courses, waiver credit, or valid SAT or ACT scores. So going through college English readiness, you can send or receive transfer credit for English 111, as noted there. You can receive waiver credit for the DR 96, 97, and 98 courses. You've completed or received waiver credit for English 002 with a minimum grade of P2. And you have also you've completed or received waiver credit for English 011, or you have SAT or ACT scores that are acceptable. So these are all options that you can complete to meet these readiness for college English and college mathematics readiness courses. So for mathematics, you would need, for the first option, you can either complete Math 143, Math 152, or Math 171. Option 2, you completed or received waiver credit for all of the following: DMAs 010 through 050. Option 3, you completed received waiver credit for Math 003 with a minimum grade of P2. Completed or received waiver credit for one of the following: 043 or 052 or 071, or proper SAT or ACT scores. So we just want to make sure those options are understood, because those are the English and mathematics college readiness options that you would need to complete. So moving on to phase 2 here. The first thing to note is that you would need to submit and take the TEAS test and get a minimum score of a 62. So the TEAS, if you were not aware, is a computerized test that really measures your reading comprehension, sentence skills, science comprehension, and math problem solving. So we just also want to note that we only at DDCC accept version 6 only. And if you were to take the TEAS test, say this year, those scores are valid for 2 years. And you can also take the test here at Davidson-Davie Community College twice in one academic year, or you can also take it online. So you can take that and submit your scores to us. So if a TEAS score is not obtained, applicants should meet with their advisor for next steps, but we do not take anything under a 62. That will get you in the admissions process, and we need to get a 62 or better. So to send these, you can print these out, and we need to see a detailed TEAS scores showing your reading, math, and science, because we look at the science scores for scoring as well as the total score. So moving on here, we have our next section here, which is applicants must provide the admissions office with documentation that verifies a minimum of 3,300 hours of work experience as an LPN. So this is really important because, if this is not met, we need 3,320 hours. This is a requirement. We can't accept anything below this. So, it must be on a company letterhead. And this is also listed in the packet for more information, but it needs to be on a company letterhead. It must identify the start and end date of employment. It must identify the position title, including a signed copy of your job description. Identify an employment if it was either part-time or full-time, and you also have to include the total number of hours worked in the position. So we also want to make this clear that students may submit multiple forms to document the completion of the minimum of 3,328 hours that is allowed. But you also have to include your name and contact information from the Director of Human Resources at the company who can verify this work experience. So next we have obtaining documentation that verifies relevant life experience here. We want to make this make clear that points will be awarded based on the submitted documents that you have. So we do want to say that copies of relevant documentation should be brought in the nursing review if you want it to be counted. Please note that these certifications must be up to date, so they cannot be expired. So we have in the life experience section a couple of key areas. So we have a section of active medical certificates. which is listed as examples in the packet. You can look at those and submit that documentation to us if you have those active medical certificates. If you are a member of our veteran or a member of the armed forces, that can also get you a point on the rubric scale. And we also have in that section to earn points associated with the length of your LPN license. So students must provide a copy of the license for conditionally accepted students regardless, but if you have that prior, we can award points based on the length of that license. So please be aware of that. So once the detailed LPN verification, T-scores, and life experience documentation is collected, applicants should provide these items again in one comprehensive document. So this could be either hand-delivered, emailed, or faxed to us. So moving on to phase 3 here, this is where this will be the actual review. So we have to make sure that all of your documentation has been submitted and obviously checked. Applicants can either choose to do a virtual review or in person, but we have, as of recently, changed those kind of requirements. So because of COVID-19, we have changed that. So you would have to do a virtual review and obviously email us to let us know. But we have been allowing applicants to stop by, dropping their documents off. So you can absolutely do that. But we are trying to move more towards a virtual review scale. So as I said, for a virtual review, please email pwsc@davidson-davie.edu to schedule a time. And we will be able to communicate with you and check to see if all of your documents are all set, and we can go ahead and do the review. And if you do need to do an in-person meeting, we do have opportunities where you can come to our main campus in Menden Hall building in the enrollment center, where you can meet with someone. Like we said, walk-ins are welcome, so we can check your documents, making sure that they're all set. You can sign into our virtual kiosk for an appointment and make sure of all your documentation is good to go. You can also set up a meeting at Davie campus in the administration building. So appointments can be made by calling the listed number, and it should be in the packet. All right, so now we're going to talk about the selection process. So we want to break it down into 3 sections, since that is what is on the rubric, broken down into T's, the academic history section, and life experience. So we want to make sure that everyone knows the deadline date of obviously the LPN to ADN program, which is February 25th, 2022 at 5 p.m. So the T's section, just to talk a little bit about that, points will be awarded based on previously submitted details T's reports. So based on the number scale, and I will show you the rubric in a second, the higher point total you have, the more points you can accumulate. And we look at the total score as well as the science score, like I said, mentioned before, as well as the academic history section. So points will be awarded based on previously submitted transcripts and the classes that we have received in our system. So we have, like I said, anything a C or better will get you points. So C is 1 point, B is 2 points, A is 3 points. We also want to highlight here that we do have necessary criteria that we have to abide by. So for the anatomy and physiology credits, our bio 165 and 166, we want to mention that these courses must be taken at the same institution in order to be counted towards program credit. So we want to mention that, as well as the bio 168 and bio 169, which I can show you specifically when I get the rubric up, can be taken at different community colleges in North Carolina only. So just want to make sure that that is noted, and we cannot accept anatomy and physiology credits where one credit or one course was taken at a university and the other course was taken at another college. So we can explain that and break that down when we see the rubric, but we also want to cover life experience. So points will be awarded based on, as I said, submitted documents, and copies of relevant documentation should be brought in for nursing reviews. CPR and first aid certifications will not provide points for relevant life experience category. We want to make that clear. because that is something that we have gotten as of late. So the review will be completed based on the documentation you've supplied, and we will go over the rubric right here. So as you can see, this is our rubric scale. And as you can see, it is based off of 36 points. So evaluated applicants, we will say that total points will be calculated for each applicant using this rubric. Specifically, applicants will be sorted in the highest total points and ranked accordingly. So applicants with the highest overall points after ranking will be offered conditional acceptance into the program. So from that being, we have the conditionally accepted students as well as our alternates. So alternates, with additional applicants will be placed in an alternate list in ranked order. So should space become available in the program, alternates will be contacted in that order. And we also want to make clear that applicants who remain on the alternate list once the 2020 nursing program begins will not be carried over to the waiting list for the following year. They must reapply for the next program cycle. So in summary, we will say from this rubric scale, we will select the top 45 candidates into the program. And if there are point ties in the 45 candidates, we will utilize our tie-breaking process to select those top 45 candidates. So going on into the notification process. So as it says, evaluated applicants will be notified via email by March 25th of the results of the selection process. So those who are offered conditional acceptance to the program must accept or decline the position by submitting the intent to enroll form within 10 business days of receiving that email. So if an applicant is conditionally accepted and then declines their seat, we cannot reverse it. Just want to say that and keep that in mind. So also keep in mind that failure to check your DDCC email address may result in you missing important information. So we want to advise you to make sure that email is set up so you are not missing that ranking. All right, and I'm going to finally pass it off to Holly. Do you mind talking a little bit about the conditionally accepted student portion, Holly?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sean, for all that information. I know it's a lot, guys, so don't feel overwhelmed. Our admission staff can help walk you through to make sure you've got the correct documents. And so I'm here today to talk about the aspects that are associated with being a conditionally accepted student. So it's really important that you kind of look through these to make sure that you're capable of adhering to these. We do find that in the L to A program, that many of the students already have many of these, much of this already. So it's not as big of an issue for those, especially those who are currently working LPNs to maintain. So Davidson-Davie, we use Complio and My Clinical Exchange. And so these are two web-based clinical clearance documentation kind of portals. And so what they're going to do is you're going to be submitting your information to these two entities. And that's also going to provide a way for us to communicate with your clinical sites. And so when we go in to find you guys clinical preceptors, then that's going to be how we can provide them with that information. I just want to be very clear that Davidson-Davie, we only require the minimum requirements by our clinical providers. So these requirements that we list here are required by the clinical sites, especially when we get into the drug screens and the immunizations. And those are set. And so the LPN to ADN program typically pulls from all across, I like to call it from Manteo to Murphy, all across North Carolina. So there may be, while we have kind of the general clinical clearance requirements here, if you are in, Brunswick County, for example, that one hospital system may have a unique requirement that we may not have listed. So just know that anything that we talk about with the conditional acceptance and especially the immunizations can change, and that is contingent upon the clinical agency in which you will be rotating through. So all students are required to do complete a drug screen and a background check, and that is done when you create that Confio account. So please note that while we provide you with this information, you do not need to go in and create a Confio account now. Please wait until you've been instructed to do such, because if so, you may waste $97, okay? Now, between when we, say, hey, congratulations, you're in the nursing program, and we'll have a couple of meetings soon afterwards. But that's a great time to start collecting your documentation for immunization records. Now, again, if you guys are working LPNs, then you probably have that as a part of working where you guys work. So it may not be as difficult to come by, but for some individuals, especially they've worked in differential healthcare settings, sometimes they need a hepatitis B, and we'll talk about some of those vaccination requirements. We also require a medical verification form, just saying that your physician agrees that you are healthy enough to complete a nursing program. Satisfactory nurse aid. I don't think that's required for the LTA, is it? Because you guys are LPNs. And the basic life support is required for individuals, and it's very particular. It must be the healthcare provider certification. All right, so this includes both 1-man and 2-man CPR. And right now, the only one that fits, and this is by the clinical agency requirements, the only one that fits is the American Heart Association CPR for the healthcare provider. So just make sure that you guys have that. And I think I saw a question Sherelle ask. You will have, Sherelle, if accepted into the program, we'll give you a specific date range. We typically like all of the CPR certifications to expire in May. And so what that does is that allows us all to keep our students on the same track, okay? You're also going to have an expiration date for your tuberculosis. So if you can go to the next slide, Sean. Okay, did you have a slide for immunizations? So I can talk about this briefly. I just want to give you guys brief information about the immunizations that are required. As of right now, this is our big question. Yes, COVID is currently required. The vaccination is currently required by all of our healthcare agencies and all of our clinical partners. And so some individuals will allow a exemption to that. Some individuals will not, some entities will not. And so we do ask that all students be prepared, and that decision tends to come and go among the different clinical agencies. The other things required: measles, mumps, rubella, varicella, tetanus, your Tdap, tuberculosis, hepatitis B, and the seasonal influenza. So all of those are going to be required. So I like to tell students that ahead of time, because sometimes they may have to go in and hunt and find their immunization records. We do require immunization records to be on official medical paperwork. Sometimes we've had people write handwritten dates on things. That was not acceptable. But we do provide you a form if you'd like to use one, but some will accept any forms that have that from your medical provider. So I think that about covers it. If you have any questions, you are welcome. I see Patricia, you live in South Carolina. So that's a good question. We do get questions from individuals from out of state. All of your clinicals have to be performed inside North Carolina. And the state that you are live in must be a compact state. So listed on the North Carolina Board of Nursing as a compact state. And I don't have that memorized, so I don't know if South Carolina is. I want to say it is, but please, don't take my word for that. But we would need to check. But you would have to do all the clinicals in North Carolina.
And one thing that I'll also add is you all are really timely with joining us for this session to get more clarity on what the process looks like, what information is going to be required, because the application process isn't just you apply one day and get all of your documents in that same day and you've completed the process and you're eligible for review. There is a component. So if you applied previously, the new student orientation was not a requirement of the process for LPN to ADN students. That is a requirement this year. There is a little bit of a time gap between when students apply, their application is processed, and then they have access to activating their StormTrack account, their email account, getting access to the Moodle course for new student orientation. And then the new student orientation can take up to 3 hours. So it's important that you think about that in advance so that you're not waiting until the last day to try and get everything completed and submitted. You're putting yourself in the best position to get into the program. And then also with that tiebreaker, the sooner your review is conducted, if you are in a tiebreaker situation, an advantage can go to somebody that had their review done prior or earlier in the process. So just bear in mind that it's not an instantaneous process. So you're doing the right thing by getting on here early and learning a little bit more about the process in general.
Caitlin, I had a question about the TB screening. I'm going to jump in real quick. It's a good question, Sherelle. So the TB screening is very important because we no longer accept a two-step TB skin test. All right. So when you go and you get the skin prick and then they go back 3 days later to check to see if you've got that. They only accept an IgRA, which is a blood draw, and the T-spot or the quantiferin gold. And do not get that until you've been told to do that, because it is an annual thing. There is a time stamp on that one as well. The CPR and the tetanus screening, those are the two items that we have timestamps on, and those are again mandated by those clinical agencies. So.
Great. Any other questions about the process, the program itself, and what that looks like? So we have a question, what documents that need to be submitted by January 28th? So those documents are all outlined in the packet, the documents that Sean reviewed. So we do need the application. We need your new student orientation submitted. We need official college transcripts, proof of high school completion. So everything that's outlined, if you look at the packet, and I'll go ahead and put the link to the packet again in the chat, but it will be outlined there and go into even further detail on page 2, 3, and 4 of the packet of what specific items you need to submit in order to be reviewed. If you're having difficulty with any phase of the process, you're welcome to contact the programs with special criteria. That contact information is on the screen now, and I'll also put that in the chat. It's pwsc@davidson-davie.edu, or you can call us at 336-249-8186, extension 6771. If we don't have the answers, we will direct you to somebody on campus that does have the answers and that can help you and make sure that we're getting you the support that you need. So especially when it comes to Storm Track, again, if you've just applied and have not, so every applicant that applies, again, Sean said, gets admitted as a general admissions student to the college. It can take about 24 hours for your Storm Track ID to be generated. And once that happens, and once you get an acceptance email from us that you've been accepted as a general student, you should have access to activating your Storm Track account. You'll also get a physical letter in the mail from us detailing that you've been admitted as a general student with some information and access to your next steps. So if you've received those, it does mean that you can take classes and then you can get started at Davidson-Davie and then go through the official review process for the LPN to ADN. So be on the lookout for those emails, and the email from admissions will go to your personal email as well as your Davidson-Davie email if you were not a student with us previously.
And if you could just clarify that the deadline for the LPN to ADN packet is February 25th.
Correct, yes.
Yeah, and so just so you guys know, we have a traditional nursing option that's for anyone who's not an LPN who's getting started in the nursing field, and that deadline is sooner. So just don't want you to be confused.
And there is a question, Holly, about the structure of the program.
Absolutely.
So do you want to go into a little bit of detail about that?
I would love to. So a good question. So we do have required virtual Zoom sessions for our students. And just know that each semester, what we do is each cohort will look and try to see what are the strategies that we can use to help you guys pass the NCLEX, because ultimately that's your goal. And so this year we've implemented mandatory Zoom sessions, virtual Zoom sessions, 2 nights a week. We may have to ask students to come in one weekend at the beginning of the semester to assess their skills and do skills checkoffs. We don't have that planned yet, but just know that could be an option. We do understand that this program is, very attractive to individuals who are working and to individuals who kind of don't live in the Davidson-Davie community. And so, we do limit your on-campus requirements to a minimum. We also provide you at the completion of the program, we ask you to come in for a 3 to 5 day, it depends on how NCLEX sets it up, but it's an NCLEX prep workshop. And you're going to take that right before you take the NCLEX. We get you prepared throughout the year that you're with us for the NCLEX by giving you NCLEX style questions and giving you a bunch of practices. But what this workshop does, it's a hands-on workshop that will get you prepared, because hopefully soon after you're going to be taking the NCLEX. So we do ask you to come in for that. That is not an additional cost. We have the Briggs Foundation, which is a generous donation to the college, which will continue to support and provide that for you guys for little to no cost. Last year we were able to cover the full funding of it through our Briggs Foundation. So. But other than that, you do have the virtual, evening. It's typically in the evenings. I think this year it's on Monday and Wednesday, 6 to 9, I want to say. Don't hold me to that. Now, the way your clinicals work is typically we try to get you guys set up with a preceptor within 90 miles of where you live. Now, that's the optimal situation. So we have a handful of clinical contracts with different partners across North Carolina. Now, if we can't get you in with a preceptor, what we'll do is then we'll group you together with some students in your area, and we'll have scheduled dates where you go, to the clinical with an instructor. But what we've, and that's typically what we use for our last resort. But what we typically do is we set you up with, let's say if you live in Brunswick County, you'll go to the hospital if we've got that contract, and you'll work one-on-one with a preceptor to record your hours. Every student must obtain 144 clinical hours each term. All right. And I always recommend get them done early. Now, we cannot get you through the class, and we cannot pass you along to the next class or even to the Board of Nursing if you don't obtain those 144 each term. Now, the challenging thing is that since it's on a precepted kind of schedule, sometimes students can wait till the end to get those in. And, we don't recommend doing that because it can prevent you from moving forward if you don't get that 144 total hours of that clinical. But other than that, it's just those 2 semesters. That's why we like for you to have all of your coursework done before you get in, because once you're done with those 2 classes, you need to be eligible to go sit for that NCLEX RN. Let's see. Hillary asked, the program starts October. I have May. It starts August 15th, typically 16th, something like that. It's when it's a fall, spring kind of course. And so you'll start in August and you'll graduate in May.
Awesome. Any other questions?
I also just want to remind everyone, again, as Kaylin mentioned, if you do have a question, feel free to reach out at our email. You don't have to reach out when you think you're done. Like, we have students who reach out about questions, inquiries, certain things, so we can pass along those to the folks who may know the answers to them. But usually we have a set process of when someone is all set or they think they are all set, you would send that document if you are applying via email, delivering your documents. We have an admissions staff member look at that through email, and we would check to see if you have everything. If you have everything, that's great. You're ready for a review. If not, we will inform you what you need to get. So I just want to state that as well, as an option.
I'm going to go ahead and put the FAQ guide for the LPN to ADN in the chat one more time. So if you do have things that pop up, these are the questions that we typically get from LPN to ADN applicants. So we figured it would be helpful to have these on our website. So both the packet and the LPN to ADN FAQs are located on the website. If you go to, in the search bar, hit ADN, it'll take you to the associate degree nursing page. And then if you scroll down mid-page, there's I think there's 3 bars that are gray. And if you click on the LPN to ADN bridge option, you'll see the hyperlink for both the packet as well as the frequently asked questions. So just so you know where to find that on the website, if you are searching afterwards, you'll know where to go.
All right, last call for questions. We'd love to answer them for you.
And what we can do, we can hang on and we'll pause and stop the recording and stop the streaming. And then if there are questions that linger, we can hang on and hang around. If you have specific questions that are a bit more personal and you still want to get those clarified before the end of the evening, we'd be happy to answer this for you. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now. All right. Well, thank you so much for those of you who joined us this evening. We hope that you learned